Welcome back. Today I'm sharing the process behind my latest painting, Through a Glass Darkly. It's an 11 by 14 inch acrylic painting featuring a roaring lion, glowing light and mirror shards worked into the main. I've kept the full artwork hidden until the end, where there'll be a short final reveal. So let's get started. I designed the drawing for this painting on my iPad. This piece is part of the same imaginative world that sits behind a lot of my paintings and the books I write and illustrate. My work is Christian, surreal, symbolic and narrative, so I often use story, creatures, colour and strange imagery to process faith and the things I'm trying to understand. This painting began with a roaring lion and the idea of broken mirror shards hidden in its mane. I've returned to lion imagery several times in my work, partly because of the strength and power of the image and partly because of the Christian symbolism connected with the lion. I'd previously created a lion painting as a commission. The person who commissioned it wanted a painting, but the idea itself was mine. I've also painted a lion mural in the head teacher's office at a school in Uganda, which was a completely different process because it was painted on a wall in gloss paint. For this painting though, I wanted to create something smaller, more detailed and more connected to the symbolic world behind my books and artwork. The title, Through a Glass Darkly, comes from the idea of seeing only partly, not seeing the full picture clearly yet, but catching glimpses, fragments and reflections. That's where the mirror shards come from. I wanted the lion to be the first thing you notice. But I also wanted there to be these smaller, hidden details that you only discover when you look more closely. Each shard would eventually contain a fragment of something else, a person, a creature, a transformation, or a tiny part of a bigger story. So the drawing needed to work in two ways. It had to be a strong lion painting, but it also had to leave space for those fragments of story to sit inside the main. Once the drawing was transferred onto the panel, I masked off the mirror shard areas with tape. I did this because I wanted to paint the lion and background first without losing those shard shapes, but keeping the flow of the mane as I painted. At this point, the shards looked quite separate from the lion, almost like blank spaces cut into the mane, but I knew that later I'd work back into the edges and make them feel more embedded. That was one of the main challenges of this piece. I didn't want the shards to look like random pictures stuck on top of a lion. I wanted them to feel like they belonged in the world of the painting, as though the mane, the mirrors and the fragments of story were all connected. I worked on the lion and the background at the same time because I didn't want them to feel like two separate parts of the painting. The light in this piece isn't just a glow behind the lion. I wanted it to feel as though the lion brings the light with it, as though the light is breaking through because the lion is there. That became an important part of the symbolism. In a lot of my work, light represents truth, hope, life, and the presence of God. Darkness distorts, hides, and twists, but the light pushes through it. So, as I built up the background, I was also building up the lion, the mane, the face, the open mouth, and the glow around it. I wanted the lion to look natural, but still carry that deeper meaning. So I used warm browns, golds and dark shadows while letting the surrounding light become part of the atmosphere. The roar was really important. This isn't a calm lion. I wanted it to feel powerful, alive and confrontational, as though it's roaring through the darkness and the broken reflections. The expression mattered so much in this painting. If the lion didn't feel alive, the rest of the image wouldn't work. At this stage, the shard areas were still masked off, so parts of the mane looked strange and unfinished. But I knew I'd come back to those areas later and make the mirror shards feel like they belonged inside the mane. For now, the main focus was getting the lion, the light and the darkness working together as one image. Lions appear a lot in Christian imagery, and that's part of why I keep returning to them. For me, the lion in this painting is connected to power, truth, courage, and the presence of Christ within the symbolic world I'm building. But I also didn't want it to feel like a flat religious symbol. I wanted it to feel alive inside the painting, roaring, moving, breaking through. That's why the natural lion colours mattered for this piece. Instead of making it obviously symbolic through unnatural colour, I wanted the symbolism to come through the light, the composition and the mirror shards hidden in the main. The lion is the centre of the painting, but the shards are where more of the story begins to appear. Once the lion and background were painted, the main atmosphere of the piece was there. The lion was roaring out from the darkness, the light was glowing behind it, and the painting had the drama I wanted. But it still wasn't complete. Without the mirror shards, it was only part of the idea. The shards are what connect this painting to the bigger world behind my books and artwork. They bring in the sense of fragmented truth, identity, transformation, and mystery. So once the first stage was finished, I removed the masking tape and started working on the tiny images inside the shards. The mirror shards were the most detailed and fiddly part of the whole painting. Most of them contain tiny fragments of people in different stages of transformation, or manifesting, into the creatures connected with them. But you never see the full image. In some shards you might only see part of a face, an eye, a hand, feathers, fur, scales, or a section of the creature beginning to appear. Other shards are so small that they don't contain a figure at all, they're just catching and reflecting the light. That was intentional. In this world, mirrors reveal things, but these mirrors are broken. So they don't show everything clearly. They show glimpses, reflections, and fragments. That connects to the title, Through a Glass Darkly. The painting is about partial seeing. We get glimpses of truth, but not the whole picture yet. Because the shards were so small, I had to simplify a lot. I couldn't paint each one as a fully detailed portrait or animal image, so I had to choose the most important part of each little fragment. I painted them one at a time, building up colour, shape and contrast. Some of the shards are brighter and easier to notice, others are darker, smaller or more hidden in the main. I liked that because it means the viewer has to look closer and discover them slowly. The creatures and transformations in the mirror shards are part of the symbolic language of this world. They're not spirit animals or anything like that. They're a fantasy way of exploring identity and the different strengths people are created with. The idea is that people can be strongest in different ways, mind, body or soul. So air, land and water creatures become a visual way of exploring those strengths. But in this painting, you only see fragments of that. You don't get the full story of each person or creature. You only catch a glimpse. There's something I really like in art and storytelling. I don't want everything to be obvious immediately. I like there to be details that people notice slowly and meanings that unfold the more they look. The shards are little windows into that bigger world. Once the images inside the shards were painted, the painting still needed one final major stage. The shards were visible, but they still felt a little separate from the lion. I wanted them to feel as though they belonged in the main, not like they'd just been placed on top. So I started working back into the edges, adding strands of fur, shadows and highlights around the shards. This was the point where the painting really started to come together. Some parts of the main overlapped the mirrors. Some parts of the mirrors catch the light. Some edges are sharper while others sink back into the fur. It was a balancing act. If the shards stood out too much, they distract from the lion, but if I blended them in too much, all the tiny details would disappear. The goal was for the viewer to see the lion first, then slowly discover the fragments hidden within the main. I wanted the lion, the light, and the broken reflections to feel like one image, not separate ideas. After all the planning, masking, painting, tiny shard details, and final adjustments, here is the finished painting. This is Through a Glass Darkly. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed seeing how this painting came together and hearing a bit more about the story and symbolism behind it. Let me know what you think of the finished piece and whether you'd like to see more videos where I share both the painting process and the meaning behind my work. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.